In this video, we will be tasting and talking about the recent winter harvest of Li Shan High Mountain Oolong tea. So this is how tea is tasted most often in tea factories. They will choose a certain quantity. We're using 7 grams of tea, and these tea bowls are the same as with a tea judging set. So they accommodate a 150 milliliter tea brewing cup, but we brew directly in the bowls in order to watch the leaves basically reconstitute and open up. This is revealing in itself. The first step usually is to observe the color of the brewed tea as it has brewed. This has already been a couple of minutes, and while you're doing that, you can also smell the aroma coming off the spoon. And if you want to be more scientific about it, you should dip it in the water first. By pushing the leaves away from the edge of the cup so that you can see to the bottom of the cup, you can get a sense of the coloration as well as the degree of transparency, which indicates how efficiently the leaves were depleted of their moisture during the tea processing. That's the main factor. It also shows you how well oxidized they are, how they were tumble heated. There's a lot, and it's very deep, and I don't profess to have that sort of vision. I'm still developing that. But the guys that have been looking at tea leaves for 20, 30 years, constantly making it, they can look in a second know what happened, basically, especially if they were making the tea themselves. That's the one. So compared to this morning when I brewed in the tea judging cups, I brewed 9 grams of tea in a 150 milliliter tea judging cup for 1 minute twice and poured it into the bowls. It's impossible to get this aromatic assessment by doing that. Dipping the spoon in the bowl as the leaves are brewing in the bowl gives you the most of the nose of the tea, the most of the aromatic profile. You really get the volatile oils evaporating off the spoon. That's exactly what's happening. And so it tells you about the Shan Tea, or the aroma, basically. And they all vary significantly. What happened in this harvest was they started harvesting. They did 1 day of harvest and were planning to do 5 in a row. A typhoon came. They had to stop for 3 days. And obviously that delayed the harvest. The leaves did continue to grow for 3 days. Not hugely, but does make a difference. And that's the reality of being a farmer. You know, you can't just book your factory date and have your product made when you want it. You have to deal with the weather. And it doesn't mean that it affected it a lot, but it was part of the overall situation of this winter's harvest in the Li Shan tea growing area. That happened last week, and that is the highest elevation tea growing region in Taiwan. Everything else will be harvested after that for winter. So in the winter season, it starts at the highest elevation and goes down the mountain. So after we did the first brewing of these leaves, when we still had about half the water, we poured it out. Or you can see in the second row here, that's the first brew, and we filled up the bowls again. So we're doing a double brew. This allows us to look at the coloration of the teas after they've really brewed quite a bit. They've sat in those, the first brew sat for probably up to 10 minutes. It was down to room temperature. So it's a concentrated brew. That's a good test as well. If you brew for that long and it doesn't get overly bitter or astringent, that's a sign of quality. So we just want to see what happens when we brew it again after it already has brewed extensively. And it allows us to see, it's a lot about comparison. You know, these leaves all came from the same farm. They were processed basically the same way with variations depending on the daily weather. But when you actually taste it, they look and taste and smell differently. And when you compare them side by side, you really get a comprehensive experience of that. This is normal, right? When you have a harvest, even though they are all similar, when you brew them side by side, you can see obvious differences. Right?
Yeah, right.
So since these brewed so much, these will be much more delicate, but that's a nice thing, another spectrum to we get to taste it super strong and light. And also to see what they still have even after brewing for so long. Cheating. I'm laughing because Min Han sent me 3 samples that I tasted in my house this morning. I wanted to come here and taste the whole harvest and speak with him, mostly speak with him and get to hear his perception of what happened and get the full story. I know this whole crew that's inside. We're in Li Shan High Mountain Tea Country right now, where Min Han and his family live. They take their whole factory staff to Li Shan to process their teas. That's a very important aspect of them ensuring good quality. So ideally, I go up and hang out in the factory for a couple of days and see the whole thing and talk to the tea makers, and as well as talk to Min Han and his mom and dad. That's the 100% value that I can get. And second best is to come to their home factory after they just brought the tea down yesterday and the day before, and talk to them, and while tasting the full spectrum all the days of harvest. So I just wasn't satisfied at home this morning. I wanted to get the full story and the full experience of the harvest. That's my personal learning experience, and it allows me to represent more professionally and definitely more comprehensively. So you went up on after the typhoon, but still they harvested after you came home for 1 day or 2 days?
2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days, but most of the field is just going too old.
Those were the older ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We keep the tea first day and second day, and then during the second day, he's come from raining.
So 4 is the one that we find quite interesting. That's the one that has this very pure character. It's mellowed, but there's not a muddled flavor to it.
Some experienced people just told me, if you make a tea after raining, because today is raining, and you make the tea tomorrow,
right,
the tea will not make so well. You gotta wait 1 day, just like this, because make the water more come out.
Right.
In the tea tree, the leaf in the tea tree.
Right.
Make 1 more day, and it will become much easier to make a tea.
Sure.
This day, the field and the tea tree just full of water.
Interesting. So when the leaves are full of water, they're saturated, and the constituents in the leaves are less concentrated. So it's a more diluted composition, basically, and so you're not going to get that intense. It's a lighter tea. It ends up being a lighter tea. It still tastes pretty damn good, though.
It's okay. But this one,
I like it. It's got that creamy. Drink tea, don't breathe it. We all do that tasting tea because you slurp. you slurp, you can inhale the tea, it goes straight into your lungs. It's not pleasant. I've done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. Okay, so I need to really think about this. This morning in my home, I chose this one. Sometimes it's really not easy, to decide what is best for everybody. That's the trick about sourcing tea. How are you going to represent this year's crop of winter tea from a given farm? Which one of these will do the best job at that? Well, one thing I've learned particularly in the last few years is to trust my first impression. It's kind of, I feel a little bit shy about that, but it really became obvious to me last winter in choosing the Baozhong tea when I had 10 choices. And without thinking about it, I ended up deciding, I chose one and then I checked about 5 times and I came back to that one. And I think it's a repeat right now. I don't like to reach conclusions. It's good to taste it 10 or 20 times, but I have a feeling I'm gonna choose the one I chose at home. Minhan sent me 3, and I chose one of 3. It's gonna be one of these guys. If I were buying the tea for myself, it might be this one, but that's a little bit further away from a classic Li Shan Tea. And so these are the 2 top candidates. We'll see how it goes. Just want to acknowledge the excitement factor, really. The batch of tea that I chose this morning at my house is the same one that I chose after tasting the entire harvest this evening. And the last thing that our source and my friend showed me was the text message from a big customer of his that wanted to buy the remainder of that day's harvest, and he saved 1 bag for us because I asked him to this morning. If I had not chosen one this morning, we wouldn't have gotten the one that I think is the best. Happy days. Now I got to get home and get it to the packaging store before it closes. Get it to Ecochat HQ tomorrow and get it to our customers in the mail to our customers by the end of the week. Winter tea on!